Podcast, episode 9. We're going to talk about motherfucking organizing 101, how to do it, maybe how not to do it. Yeah, I got special guest IDK up in the Lil Guillotine studios. This is the first time we're doing this podcast out of Lil Guillotine studios as opposed to Revolver Audio. So that's a first. Got it all set up. Should be dope. Okay, yeah, so I was just interested in talking about, like, organizing, how to do it, what to do, like, ideas for doing it, your experience doing it. So basically, we were talking already, and I was talking about, like, what if you're somebody who is pissed off by the system, you've got a critique of capitalism, right? And you want to go beyond just, you're anti-racist, you know what I mean? You're anti-oppression, you're anti-capitalist, and you want to go beyond just social media, like posting about how the system needs to change, and you want to actually do something. Like, what are some ideas and ways that you can get stuff done? Organizing 101. You know what I'm saying?
That's still a pretty broad question. I mean, like, it depends on where your goals are, I suppose. If you just want to do something other than social media, you could do easily some kind of other media campaign, be that like wheat pasting or graffiti to flyering or making pamphlets. One idea that I've been thinking about, but like I don't have any of the resources for it. So if you like it, take it, do it yourself. Make like a little acting troupe or something where you can differently express it to people, like express the ideas you want to get across and the messages you want to get across to people, as well as it gives you a medium where you can express what you would want in place of that. Because, I mean, like, that's one thing we have a lot of is, like, a lot of people are frustrated, but, like, we also need solutions for this, too. And to, like, start manifesting them into this reality by doing them, by showing them, by spreading them in a very natural way.
Yeah, that's dope. That reminds me, well, obviously, like, that's kind of my mission with the hip-hop music, is to try to spread the message out there.
Oh, yeah.
In a way that's besides just traditional social media or media, I guess. It is a medium, obviously.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I like the idea of the propaganda, like getting into the propaganda war, with this, flyering, stickering, postering, wheat pasting around town, just so folks, get exposed to alternative ideas, because that's definitely, like, problematic when folks radicalize, or they understand there's a problem with the system, but they like aren't exposed to any alternatives, like you're saying, right? And this is why fascists come about, because they're like fucking anti.
You prey on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of which,
oh, what's that? Okay. Fascism Today: What It Is and How to End It, by Shane Burley. Shane Burley was on Democracy Now! I think it was either yesterday or the day before.
Yeah.
Did you catch that?
No.
Yeah, he was talking about the fucking Portland. I believe he's in Portland, out of Portland, or he was there during the interview. He's talking about the big protests that the proto-fascist, the fascist, like the Patriot Front and Proud Boys had on over the weekend.
Yeah.
He had some good shit to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, you think about, like, why people get radicalized towards fascism or like white supremacism or white nationalism. It's like a lot of times it's because they see problems with the system. They see people starving in the street, but then they, instead of having like a good analysis, because they're exposed to like left-wing politics, which is, what you can do, instead of doing that, they have scapegoats, like black people, immigrants, and things like that.
He does a great job in this book of like outlining all of that, because like a lot of people are getting into anti-fascism from 2016 and on, and I've seen a number of books on like the history of anti-fascists and different ways people have done it, but I found this one to be better for like educating it on what it is actually, and like making connections from the historical fascism that everybody thinks of but doesn't really necessarily understand that well to the modern day groups and iterations of it. And because of that is a wonderful tool.
Yeah, that's what's up. So it's like, yeah, just reading shit, or at least getting exposed to politics and books from folks who organize is definitely a good way to get started in some organizing or some ideas around organizing, you know. Oh, you were talking about stickering, flyering. We actually, one thing that example we have here in Madison, Wisconsin is there's these TERFs, TERF.
I've seen those stickers.
Have you
Farts.
seen them? Oh, the fart ones? That's a good one. Yeah. But they're these TERFs, these trans exclusionary radical feminists. They're basically folks who are transphobic against trans women. And yeah, they've been putting up these stickers all around town, or at least in their neighborhood around Willie Street Co-op and for Tenney Park. They've been putting up these stickers that say like, it's like got the definition of woman, and then it says like woman definition, like I forget the exact wording, but it's like basically saying that, you know, being a woman is biological only. And it's insidious too, because it's like it doesn't break it down for the general public, these stickers they put up. So it's really geared towards people who are trans women themselves, who understand like what they're saying, or like, you know, the left. And it's sort of like terrorism like that in a way. And so, and another thing I would point out is that like there's been 15 black trans women that were killed so far in the United States this year.
Damn.
The black trans women bear the brunt of transphobia in the United States, and so it's really racist. And when they're able to put up this propaganda unchallenged, it really goes to help towards that racist violence.
Yeah.
And so we've been putting up stickers, you know, that say fart, which is a better definition of a TERF. What does that stand for again?
Feminist, appropriating, reactionary, transphobe.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
Yeah, I like those. Those are a good one.
So that's important, I think, to get that up, because, yeah, like I said, it leads to violence when those messages go unchallenged.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some tendencies of like left politics that sort of scoff, or like, I don't know, they don't feel like it's as conducive to social change to like engage in the propaganda campaigns that I think anarchists do more than some other.
I have kind of mixed feelings on it, because like on the one hand, it can get the message out, and it feels great to do. It's fun to do, but like on the other hand, there are a lot different and probably better forms of media that we can be using. Like you're using music now, and like using the reason I was going for acting or something, because it's something visual. It can be catchy. It can be fun. It can be everything that is already being used in media to catch people's attention, because that's what we'd have to compete against, you know, because that's what's going on daily.
So you've never done anything with the acting yet? Have you done any acting work?
Not related to these ideas, no. Like I've dabbled in, but
Actingvism, acting activism. That reminds me of like Food Not Bombs. Like when they first started off, they did like meals, and then they did like a show that was part of like their original thing. They did like an acting show next to it. Nice. I believe they were focused on like, you know, environmental degradation and shit like that.
They sound pretty anti-war too.
Yeah, well, that's probably what it was. It's probably anti-war.
But
stuff.
I like Food Not Bombs, and I really like the idea of community kitchens, and that's another great way that you could organize. Like if you like to cook, or you know some people who like to cook as well, and can get them to put together meals for people, just free food for anybody. It can draw authorities' attention, we found, but it's also just a great way to bring people out, and then you have a captive audience. You can spread your message to.
Propagandize.
Right. something that I think is important if you're getting into community organizing, like getting into bigger things, is having like something for people to do if they want to. Like if somebody wants to get more interested, if they're really interested, just giving them the information isn't going to be enough, kind of like it's not enough for you at this point if you're trying to get into organizing. And having some kind of plan for like how they can start helping as well. Although keeping it loose as well, because you got to play with like what people have for time and skills and motivation, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. We get we do a free meal in Madison with the General Defense Committee organizing, and we try to involve people who want to get involved in like either cooking or serving or possibly picking up food and bringing it to us.
Oh yeah.
And then you got the captive audience, but then it's also like, which leads to like a good. And it's not necessarily like you're going to preach at people.
Right.
It's like it's a two-way conversation.
Yeah.
That you get to have.
Which is really important.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's like good for building base too in the community, I would say, like base building. You have folks that are willing to have each other's backs and shit like that. But yeah, that's another critique that a lot of folks have, Marxists, certain strains of Marxists have, of like mutual aid work. That anarchists tend to find valuable, and not all Marxists are anti-mutual aid work either. But yeah, a lot of folks say, if it's not like at the point of production, then you're sort of like wasting your time in a way. But then, the Marx and wrote about the commons. There's lots of Marxist theory that I think go towards arguing that like rebuilding the commons and doing mutual aid work actually is very revolutionary, because that's like part of how capitalism operates. Is it needs to expropriate the commons in order to like have private property, because without like them taking all the land and using it for profit and for manufacturing and production, like capitalism wouldn't exist. And so in a way, when we take back the commons, when we feed folks, and when we like have spaces out in public where we like have community, it like it like directly sort of underpins or undermines like the capitalist system.
Yeah, which is I'm glad you brought up mutual aid, because I think that's very important. Not just like a local mutual aid network where you're getting different groups with different skills and ability together, but also like regional mutual aid networks, because you might not have the resources in your own city, or it might just be useful to have more people to know and help send aid in whatever way should you come under some kind of emergency.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, we were talking about like mutual aid and reclaiming the commons, and that being like a legitimate way to organize. And there's some body of work, I think, like that's really good, has a really good critique of like the type of Marxisms that sort of are anti-mutual aid, and that's by Silvia Federici. Silvia Federici talks a lot about reclaiming the commons, and she uses, like Marxist theory to argue that too. Does a really good job, in my opinion. You ever read any of that?
No.
Yeah, I got some audiobooks of Silvia Federici.
Oh yeah.
That talk about that. Should definitely check that out on my YouTube page, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, so like we talked about like, propaganda, getting propaganda up as a way to organize, music and acting as a way to organize, and then like mutual aid in the form of like free meals and things like that as a way to organize. And so, of course,
I think it should go way beyond free meals, though. Like, one idea I've had, and I'd love to get going, but I don't have the technical abilities for, is a network, kind of like a local intranet network, but like a social media site that you can get on it. So, like, think of like a free local internet, and then you've got your social media And with it, you can advertise like, I have these skills if you need them. And people could put out requests. It could, you could basically answer each other's shit as another way to subvert the system in some ways.
Right. Yeah, to directly undermine sort of how capitalism operates.
Yeah.
There's a organization in town here in Madison run by Stephanie Rearick out of the Social Justice Center. It's called Mutual Aid Network, actually.
Yeah.
And they're, she's been working towards that for many years now.
Huh?
Something I've been wanting to get involved with.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, they were doing like planting food in like different spaces around town that were available that weren't being utilized at all, It's just like little plots of land in people's yards that they weren't going to use otherwise.
Oh yeah.
Like, hey, plant some food here and then like, give it away for free and shit. And yeah, because when you also like another thing about, well, I guess I'm kind of stuck on like free meal stuff again, but when you feed people, you're able to build base because like, that's part of like economic exploitation, is that like, if you can't afford to eat, like you're definitely you most likely are not going to be able to afford like time to organize directly against the capitalist system.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, when we feed each other, we free up some time that we would have had to have spent like working to make money or like, making meals from scratch and whatnot. What is it? Even Lenin talked about the economic versus the political struggle. And like, I forget what book. I used to be a trot. But yeah, it's like, you go, when you improve economic conditions, it actually enables people to get involved more in the political struggle, he argued.
Yeah.
So, pro mutual aid Marxism again.
The less time you have to worry about where you're going to eat or how you're going to pay rent or pay bills, the less time you spend doing all that shit, the more time you have to live and like have a life.
That's right.
Rather than just be in the rat race.
That's right. And so, yeah, another thing I was thinking about as far as like how to organize is like, sometimes, a lot of times throwing marches and protests are like, can be useless when you could be doing direct action instead. But not always, you know what I mean? Like sometimes there's like fascists or proto-fascists that want to come and congregate, at your capital, at the Capitol. And so it's really worth it to throw a protest or a march there or like, a big gathering to like, to show up and just like kind of freaking make them feel unwelcome and outnumbered. I think that's important to like smash their confidence. Otherwise they'll just keep coming back. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. And definitely I think in Madison we have like probably too many protests and marches when we should be like shutting shit down. You know what I mean? But nonetheless, have you ever organized any protests or marches? Or I guess I shouldn't ask you that because then you're incriminating yourself. But if you were going to do that, yeah, what are some ideas and tips on doing that, I guess?
I've never done it.
Yeah, okay.
So I've been a part of several, and I've maybe like helped in some of the planning sometimes, but I myself, I wouldn't say have ever organized a march. I don't know. You just got to be able to reach people, I guess.
Yeah.
You have to have like either a base already, a network already that you can talk to, or just be able to mobilize people somehow.
Kiggity crush ice, crush ice, crush ice, crush ice, crush ice. Shouting al amigo all of my life. Kiggity crush ice, crush ice, crush ice, crush ice, crush ice. CBPD and chest pay the price. Kiggity crush ice, crush ice, crush ice, crush ice, crush ice. Smash it up, burn it down, that shit is tight. Kiggity crush ice, crush ice, crush ice, crush ice, crush ice. Hopped on a ball and shit like it's a vice. Would've never thought you would this slow. Beating even plots like a stop bow. Feeding people lots of the hype though. You be keeping tots in a pinfold. Taking over water when it's fatal. Letting people rot, numbers untold. Keeping families locked in a stable. We don't need no cops, that's a fable. Zero tolerance is a dog whistle. Many dollars spent rated on missiles. They deliver in what they promised, yo. Racist military that's dividing all. Your existence is unconscionable. Our resistance is incomparable. Rip children from arms and you claim there's no harm. Stop building a fascist race cleansing arm. Crush DHS, that's Department of Homeland Security. Crush CBP, that's Customs and Border Protection. And most of all, hey, yeah, what? Kiggity crush ice, crush ice, crush ice, crush ice, crush ice. Shouting a la migra all of my life. Kiggity crush ice, crush ice, crush ice, crush ice, crush ice. CBP, DHS, they'll pay the price. Kiggity crush ice, crush ice, crush ice, crush ice, crush ice. Smash it up, burn it down, that shit is tight. Kiggity crush ice, crush ice, crush ice, crush ice, crush ice. Hopped on a ball and shit like it's a vice. We gonna beat down, got the whole street down. We target ice and we never think twice. Pivot and pin it on all of these guys. Can't stop at the cops, let's close the whole shop. CBP, DHS, we target all of this. We became its effect, Democrats rolled us back. Both sides are to blame, throw system in flames. Begins in 96, it's Clinton's legacy. He authored racist scripts, fuck white supremacy. It's bigger than you, we see what you do. Borders are violent, that's why we're rioting. Nations are violent, smash it or die with it. Round up the people, claim that you're peaceful. Squeaky clean vote machine, duopoly obscene. There's fascist tendencies right there for all to see. We've seen this before, it leads to mass gore. We held a mass meeting, we didn't for sleeping, the planning retreating, the which we are eating. Kiggity crush ice, crush ice, crush ice, crush ice, crush ice. Shouting a la migra all of my life. Kiggity crush ice, crush ice, crush ice, crush ice, crush ice. CBP, DHS, they'll pay the price. Kiggity crush ice, crush ice, crush ice, crush ice, crush ice. Smash it up, burn it down, that shit is tight. Kiggity crush ice, crush ice, crush ice, crush ice.
Definitely gotta have like a good message, right? A good argument that's also concise. Like in the case of the 3%ers protesting, it's like these people are involved in Islamophobic protests and even attempted bombings around the country, as well as like really violent like paramilitary policing down on the border, and like they're coming here with their guns and they're going to protest, so we should stand up against them and show them we're not okay with them, you know. And then getting that message out there, you know. And it's really similar to organizing parties. I found it's like, you know, doing hip hop shows is like there's a lot of parallels with organizing a mass protest or a mass march. It's like, get flyers up, get them up as many places as you can where folks will see them. They say it's like someone has to see something an average of like 7 times before it'll actually click. And so there actually is even you know, if you put posters up in sort of just obscure places where sort of like somebody who wouldn't be interested is going to see it, that's not the best use of time. But, you know, go to the places where folks who are going to be interested in organizing against fascists in this case, or maybe it's organizing against MG&E, the Madison Gas and Electric, and their fossil fuel consumption and their lack of renewable energies. You know, you put those up, get them up there. Give yourself like as many weeks as you can. You know, like 2 months would be nice, but you can do it. You can do it in a shorter time.
Shit, here in Madison, you guys just recently lost a legal battle against Line 3, didn't you?
Yeah, that's
and so
right.
You're talking about direct actions. That's somewhere you could focus energies if it was really of interest to you, because like, that is the monster killing Earth.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there was somebody who took, what is it, Enbridge, I think. And they were trying to, it was a county case or something like that. But you're right, the like Line 3 goes through Dane County to the east of Madison, just a few miles. And so like, that's a pinch point for sure. But it would be like, also I think like coalitions, right? Or like co-sponsors, I think are important, because, you know, you contact other groups that you know in town, like, and if it was like an environmental march we'd do, or like demonstration, we'd contact like, you know, folks who are interested in that, which are a lot: Wisconsin Network for Peace and Justice, Socialist Alternative Comrades, International Socialist Organization doesn't exist anymore. But contact all of these groups, like, you know, the church groups that are like activisty, like the James Reeb, the Universalists, I think they're called. Yeah, Universalist Congregation or something like that. I forget it, but they're like a church group. The Quakers, things like that. Get them to co-sponsor. If it's not too sensitive, get a Facebook event going. That's a good way to get the word out to folks who haven't seen it. In addition to flyering, postering, go to events, make a flyer, a handbill, give it out to folks. Go to events that would have people of like-minded might be interested in something like that. Like there's Fighting Bob Fest coming up. That'd be a great place to organize all types of stuff. And Stevens Point, because progressives go there a lot. But
I think you're kind of making a good point in that if you're interested in doing more, you don't necessarily have to become an organizer. You can sometimes look around and see what other groups in your area are doing and jump on board with them.
Yeah, that's right.
But at the same time, I can find that a lot of groups, once they can make themselves public, lose a certain ability of action or desire to action because they're this visible force now. So
accountable to the state.
Keep in mind what your objectives are.
Yeah, definitely. Yep. Yeah, so the coalitions, the like press releases if you're doing something that can be public, talking to the media, finding your progressive friendly like media outlets, like a lot of the college papers here in town, Daily Cardinal, Badger Herald, they would probably publish something announcing a demonstration. Like Tone Madison magazines turn out to be a great thing. It's like there's calendars with events that you can submit your action to, as long as it's like something that won't get you in trouble or whatever. In Madison, you're supposed to have a permit to to march or to demonstrate like anywhere, but the cops here, part of their the way their MO, their modus operandus is that they act like they're on our side. And so even if you don't get a permit, they'll come and they'll act like they're helping. They'll like stop traffic for marches and things like that.
Right.
I don't know if I know it's not like that everywhere. Is it like that where you're from, or the cops come and shut it down?
I haven't seen any marches that were unpermitted get shut down, but again, most of the orgs will end up doing the permitted marches. They're not interested in the conflict. And I think that comes with becoming like a legal organization or something. Or at least that's the way it seems to me.
Yeah. I definitely do not fuck with the cops, or I don't know, it just hamstrings you in so many ways when you start organizing with the cops. Yeah. Fuck the state every day, every way. Hey. And so yeah, you know what I mean? If you can get away with it, otherwise it's like folks in Hong Kong, they have these cool tactics I learned about where it's like be fluid or be like water? Is that what it is?
Yeah, be like water was one of them. I liked their tactics coming out, and they've had the calling out a 1-2-1-2 for marching out of tear gas and that kind of thing, so people don't get injured. But that's not the case in all of it. A thing with Hong Kong, though, I've heard some critiques coming out about it's actually more like the capitalist class is trying to avoid the integration or the mainland China being able to extradite their corrupt people because capitalist. And so I don't know personally what's going on the ground. I haven't looked that much into it, but somebody was critiquing it and saying we shouldn't rush to just jump on the bandwagon there. We gotta actually look at what's going on.
Yeah, it was an interesting development today because you got conservatives here in the United States now who are backing the Hong Kong protests, and
Right.
CNN, I think it was CNN it was the fucking Wall Street Journal, who I think it was today, they had a title of an article that said we stand with Hong Kong, and that has to do because it really nicely aligns with Trump's tariff wars with China, right? Because China's like, looking to send the People's Army, what they call their army, into Hong Kong to like settle to squash the resistance that's happening there. And so yeah, it becomes this thing where conservative American capitalism can get on board with Hong Kong now, which is a really interesting development.
Right.
Yeah, okay, so back to like the subject of organizing, how to do it, how to organize a protest or a demonstration if it's going to be public. If it's something you can't advertise, I guess like, the how you build it's going to be a lot different. It probably won't be as big, right? But there'll probably be some really good direct action going down. So of course you'd probably want to be mindful of security culture in that case heavily. What were you saying?
If you can do both, do both.
Mm-hmm.
Like build the public protest and use it as partial cover for your other action, or I've kind of had mixed feelings on this one. Just have a direct action planned for while another protest is going on.
Yeah. Hell yeah. So in that case, you wouldn't go put up posters and flyers. You'd probably choose a like private location that's not like a coffee shop or a bar to have a meeting, and then folks probably wouldn't have their phones on them because like
don't leave your phones at the same place as well, because like they can still be like, oh well, their phones were all together.
Yeah. Yeah, also the phones at the protest aren't even necessarily a good idea.
Yeah, if you're doing a direct action, you really don't want them.
Yeah. Or depending on the cops, any fucking protest almost. 'Cause
right.
Like,
you don't want them getting your shit. But at the same time, it can be like really damaging not to have a video that you can live stream to the internet where they can't just smash your shit and be like, it didn't exist.
Yeah, no shit. Right? Starting affinity groups are like, starting an organization too. That's another kind of like organizing tactic, I think. Might be worth going over. I've had experience starting a few over my years.
Affinity groups are like small groups of friends that you really can trust to keep their mouths shut and who are also down for the same kind of shit you are.
That's right. And then, or just like an organization, right? Because I helped start the General Defense Committee of the IWW here in Madison. And yeah, that's a whole different thing. Because, like, in that case, you're kind of like attracting not just around an issue, like it is with a protest or a demonstration or like a direct action, where you can kind of, get people's ire and pique their...
Where you have a clear enemy that you can galvanize people against.
Yeah. Right, you got to get... You're interested in folks who are more like down to struggle for years, against like the capitalist system.
A deeper understanding of the theory and
that's right.
A desire to make it real.
And on that point, it's like part of doing that is like doing education somehow or another.
Yeah.
Through music or acting or reading groups or fucking. I do audiobooks. I think I mentioned that already.
I really like the book groups you're doing. That's part of why you're getting this.
Yeah. So we do like reading groups, and I'll do an audiobook, and then folks can listen to the audiobook instead of having to read. Because it's not always accessible when you assign like hundreds or even dozens of pages of reading. Some people don't read that well, and like I think you got to meet people where they're at, right?
Yeah, it was definitely very helpful.
And then also like getting engaged in some struggles and like getting some wins is an absolute must if you're trying to start up an organization of some sort. That's the way that like folks will be attracted or hear about you and like associate your group or organization or whatever with social change. And so I think getting on board with something like that is important.
And like we were talking before with when you're first getting people who are interested in doing more, giving them education on, giving them more information on it and the tools to choose to do something themselves, really empowering them to around the subject is a great way to get people involved.
Yeah. Hell yeah. And then being consistent too, like just being there, meeting every week or 2 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever it might be. Every like last Thursday or second and third Thursday or some shit. Is really important too, I think, because it's like, we're here to stay. We're organized, right?
And that means when nobody's showing up too.
Yeah.
It happens. Don't feel bad about it.
That's right. And I think that like the way you run your meetings is really important too, because like, we got a lot of in this society, part of the way they divide people is through gender and heteronormativity, right? And so like there's a lot of ways that people take up space, public space, that are like associated or reinforced through gender and heteronormativity and like whiteness. And so like I think it's important to like run your meetings such that you don't just give space to hetero white cis males, because like they're taught, and it's not like they're bad, you're not bad person because you're a hetero white cis male, but society and capitalist society teaches hetero white cis males that like their ideas are more important, and so like it's reinforced inside of them and like through society that like their ideas are important and that they need to talk, and they need to talk over people, and that it's okay when they do because their ideas are more important. And so yeah, like figuring out ways to run your meetings so that can't happen is really important for making the space hospitable for folks who aren't hetero white cis males.
And a difficult and ongoing process at all times.
Yes. That's why I think like taking stacks is pretty good. Like taking turns, and then like I think time limits.
We've had groups use a talking stick. You have to hold the stick or whatever random instrument we chose for the day.
That's cool. Yeah, and then like, you know what I mean? And that won't necessarily right away stop hetero white cis males from interrupting, but it gives you an impetus or something to bring it up. It
creates a culture that makes it more acceptable to speak out.
Yeah, against those folks who interrupt and take up space a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like the comrade posted something the other day, which was like, it was from the pamphlet called I forget what it's called, but it's like I think it was like hetero white cis males make good informants or something like that. Do you know?
I've heard that one. I think.
Yeah, but the quote that the comrade put up from that was really succinct and poignant, because they were talking about like silence, right? So it's like silence can be like important to have during a meeting. You don't always need to when a question is posed or when it's in between subjects, you don't always need to fill up the space with more talking, because like it gives folks ideas to time to think and like develop thoughts that then contribute to like a better conversation than maybe if you just rushed to talking. And then also it provides like folks who aren't socially conditioned to go ahead and talk all the time. It gives them time to like
process what they just were hearing.
Yeah, exactly.
And really absorb it a little bit better.
Gives them opportunities to speak up too, as opposed to like, the hetero white cis male kind of needs to always have the space taken up by talking, and like will tend to talk really quick. I used to do this a lot. I still do, I'm working on it, but I used to say like, I just wanted to say anything because I didn't want silence because it's awkward or whatever.
Right.
But the awkward can be good, and like a good way to work towards more conducive, more spaces that are like accepting of all types of folks.
One or two more things I'd like to say real quick before we're completely gone.
Yeah.
Is one little pamphlet I've been trying to spread a lot as like an intro thing for people is critical thinking is an anarchist weapon.
Oh, okay. Never heard of that one.
It's got like a brief thing on Stirner in the beginning, I want to say, but then goes into just discussing like the basics of logic and then logical fallacies. Not all of them, because there's tons of them, but just like a good variety of common logical fallacies. And once you give people those tools to reason, it really helps them cut through the bullshit. If you've got people who are just getting into politics or something and they're getting a lot of information from the right or just from bad sources, it helps them just like see through it all.
That's what's up. No, I do remember you telling me this last Saturday, actually.
And then there was one other that you made me think of when you started talking about Stack and how to run good meetings and organization. There's a little book called Come Hell or High Water, which talks about various pitfalls that you can run into during egalitarian organizing.
Okay, come hell or high water.
Yeah.
Yeah, right on.
It's got little stick figures on the front.
That's a pamphlet?
No, that's a little book.
That's a book. All right.
Yeah.
Bet.
I got a copy when I was out at the Wooden Shoe in
Okay, yeah.
Pennsylvania.
That sounds odd.
Oh, yeah.
Why Misogynists Make Great Informants. That's the name of the pamphlet. Yep. By Courtney Desiree Morris and Makeshift. Maybe that's a collective. All right, yo. Well, that was it today. Short episode. Packed full of useful information, hopefully. Do you have any plugs of shit you want to, like, people? We did those plugs, obviously, but anything else you can think of? Actions.
The Midwest Left Assembly is coming up just south of Rockford, Illinois.
Yeah.
It's going to be classes and time to meet and get to know other organizers in the region.
Yeah.
I think, what was that one happening in, was it Detroit?
Yeah.
As well?
Totally.
Bend the Bars.
That's right. Yeah.
I think.
Yep. Bend the Bars, anti-prison, or pro-prison abolition, rather.
Prison abolition. Oh,
Prison
yeah.
Abolition Conference.
That's also coming up.
It's in the same
this
weekend, right?
Yeah,
no, it's this weekend.
They're. Oh.
I thought.
No, you're right.
Right.
Bend the Bars is this weekend.
Yeah.
Midwest Left Assembly is next weekend.
Bet.
If you can make it to either of them, check them out.
Yeah. Hot. Great plugs. I dropped this song called Pride, which is about, like, it's against TERFs and it's against cops and pride. Did it with some comrades. It's funny, I did the one trans woman from Milwaukee came and laid down some neo-soul guitar riffs, and then I had a gay comrade from Madison made the beat, and then I had some other MB comrades here in Madison that did the hook, and then like I did some rapping on it. So it was a great, fucking, what is it called when people work on something together? Collaboration. Yeah, it was a great collaboration of comrades. Check that song out. It's called Pride.
There's also groups who are doing protests against ICE facilities and anyone connected to ICE, anybody supporting them in any way. I think it's Coalition to Close the Camps.
Yeah, the Coalition to Close the Concentration Camps, 4 Cs.
Oh, yeah.
CCCC.
Fuck ICE.
Hell yeah, figgity fuck ICE. I just dropped the single called Crush Ice too, which is radio edited version of my Fuck Ice song. Peep that on all platforms as well. Well, thanks for coming by, IDK, to the motherfucking Lil Guillotine studio here in Madison, Wisconsin.
Oh, yeah.
All right, y'all. Have a good night. Have a good week. Have a good month. Have a good revolution. Peace.
Peace.